Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes your projects hassle-free. Forget something you need? Visit HomeDepot.com or the Home Depot app for free delivery on millions of products, including same-day and next-day options. Get delivery at the speed you need, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. What's up, everybody? We are back here on the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T, and yes, the triplets are back in town. Now, we don't look like each other, but I just use that because there's three of us, and this is your regular crew here.
We back in the building.
I was out of town last week. Appreciate you. The fellas held it down for me last week. Don't leave him hanging.
Never.
Okay? Don't leave him hanging.
I can't leave. Archie, you put some respect on it.
Respect on it.
Yeah,
and we were talking earlier before we came on the show that Arch, they need to get the respect on Arch now. Like when he goes and asks a question after practice, like y'all better know who he is now. This ain't just a random reporter. I said this is the Dave Archer.
Yeah. Just to give people a little behind the scenes. Arch was asking a particular player some questions after practice, and after Arch left, that particular player was like, Dave Archer? Who is Dave? And you could tell the kid really wanted to know who Arch was. So that's why me and Rack are saying he better put some respect on Arch's name.
If you didn't know, this is Dave Archer. That's DJ Shockley, and I'm Derek Rackley, and we are back to talk about all things Falcons as we are officially in training camp. I know the guys already said that last week, but I wasn't here, so I'm going to do it again. Quick, the rundown here says quick off-season update from Rack.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard when you're hosting the show and then you have to ask yourself a question.
Well, Rack, all right, here we go. We and Arch talked about our different things we partaked in last off-season or this off-season.
Yeah.
So what did you do this off-season, Rack?
Well, I'll tell you this. I played very little golf, which is kind of normal for me these days. But I've mentioned it before on the show. I'm a softball dad. I got two girls that play softball, so I've used this term. I've been softballing all summer. Okay? Yo. So I've been from Alabama to Florida to Kansas City to Colorado, back to Atlanta, and then to California.
Goodness gracious.
So you see all these fingers that I held up kind of talking about where I've been? That also could equate to like thousands, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Like all my money goes to my kids and their activities.
No doubt.
But as they say, I wouldn't change it for the world because of all the memories that were created.
I can say this too. Rack's two girls can flat ball now. That's why that's why he's all over the country. They ain't just doing that to go see if they can get some barbecue in Kansas City.
Right. Although I did get some barbecue in Kansas City. That's what I've been up to. I did hear about you guys. You were on the Falcons cruise because I did my homework. I watched your guys' podcast last night. And you have been spending some time with your son at travel baseball, and your daughter's been playing track. See, I watch you guys. Like, I miss y'all when I'm gone.
We miss you too, bro.
That, man. We
made sure we missed you too.
Well, we talked for like an hour and a half because last time. Yeah, so
I know.
Now
we can talk for an hour and a half if you want. Okay. Like we were joking before we came on the show. Give the people what they want. Give them what they want. They want it. No, y'all don't want to hear about what we did.
So you got no. See, when it's me and Arch, it's nobody to ring us back in. We gonna talk. When you're here, you can bring us back in.
Nobody to keep us on schedule, huh?
That's right.
Completely off script last week.
Sorry about last week.
All right.
Me and Arch are off schedule QBs.
Well, that's my job is I'm going to get him back on track. So, Arch, you had a little live show last week. Tell us how it went. I did watch a little bit of that. I didn't watch all of it because it was long. It was an hour and a half.
It was.
But I did see you guys talk with Coach Raheem Morris. I saw you talk with Terry. I saw you guys talk who else did you guys have on the show?
Tori
was on
Tori
the show.
McElhaney, yeah.
So tell me how the live show went.
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I thought not from my perspective because I was probably the weak link of the whole thing. But I thought that Taylor Vismore was outstanding as our host. Our crew that puts that kind of stuff on. This is an award-winning crew. You guys know that do the .com stuff and their ability. This was the first time they'd done a live scenario where we actually got cameras interacting with what we're talking about live. And then, of course, we had the coach, the GM, and Tori came in and sat down with us. So that was fun. And then have the box set up to where you could see some of practice. Now, one thing I will say, and this is kind of a late disclaimer, we're not allowed to show a lot of the practice. Show some tight copy of some guys working out and doing some drills and stuff like that. But as far as getting to 11-on-11 and 7-on-7, if you're expecting that, just go in knowing that no coach wants to give away any of those trade secrets. even though I know the people up on the hillside are probably filming stuff. But anyway, it was a really fun thing to do. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got any comment, please send them in. We're always trying to be the best we can possibly be, so feel free to do that. But it was fun to work with Taylor. You work with Taylor all the time.
Yep, I
thought she was outstanding.
Yeah,
Arch had the big notebook out, so you knew it was serious. So it was full and
usually
off right
you think
there,
the notebook only comes out on draft night.
Right,
It's
right.
like, no, anytime it's important for Arch, he
Yeah.
brings out the binder.
You know it's
okay, and it's all the notes. Arch, I did write down a couple of things, just listening Coach Raheem Morris. Obviously, they are in the acclimation period, as they call it right now, right? He's talking about the proper progression, getting everybody up to speed, not only mentally, that's probably the hardest part for most players, especially the young ones, but also physically, not to mention the brutal heat that we're dealing with in the Atlanta area, which guess what? That's normal at this time of the year in Atlanta. So if you're going to be one of the Atlanta Falcons organizations, you know you are going to sweat your face off at practice. However, these are some of the, shall I call them curbs that are in place as the CBA has evolved over the years.
We're smarter now than we used to be.
Yeah.
We're not. The league is.
Correct. I know you talked about on the show, I think you said 15 days straight of doubles back when you were playing. Yeah. I remember even when we were playing Chark, we were on a 2-2-1 schedule, so it was 2 a day single, 2 a day single, and then if we practice good enough, we might get Sunday off, but it all depended on how things go. Those days are gone, folks.
Well gone.
Those are way gone. But one thing I thought was interesting, I want you to elaborate on this, is a year ago it was Outrun the South, but now it's Move in Silence, was what I heard from head coach Raheem Morris. What did you take away from what he was saying in year 2 here?
Yeah, I thought that Taylor asked that question. I thought that was a really good question. I think that there's an idea here is I need to get better as a coach too, from not just what we do on the field, from a messaging standpoint. How much does that transfer to meetings? How much does that transfer to walkthroughs, and then ultimately in full speed when we're going at it? And I think that he's tweaked some things about how we want to attack things, how we want to approach things from a mental concept. You talk about the mental piece of it is so big. A lot of the practices are walkthroughs and things of that nature, so you do have to go through the mental piece of it. But it told me, Rack, that I think the staff sat down and said, okay, what did we do wrong last year that we can improve on? And I think maybe getting too caught up in what's going on in the division, let's reel it back and let's think about ourselves a little bit more. Let's kind of spend time on what we can do. It's an old adage. We all heard it as players, no matter what era you played in. How much better can you be today than you were yesterday?
Right.
And there's no way you can be the same as you were yesterday, because you've got another opportunity to get better. So you're either better or worse. There's not a spinning the wheels scenario. So that was kind of what I took away from it.
Focus on us, can control what you can control. And Chark, I don't want to go back to my softball days, but there are certain things that, like, I learned as a football player, being around coaches like Raheem Morris. I was never around him on the same team, but against him. But all coaches have the kind of the same similar philosophies, and we talk about it in softball too, is we go and play the game, we don't play the opponent, which is kind of similar to what you're talking about. It's, we need to outrun the South in order to get the automatic berth into the postseason, but at the end of the day, it's also control what we can control and play our game. Would you agree, Chark, that that's what you have to focus is on? How can each player get better? How can the team get better? And then all we have to do is execute on Sundays, not necessarily beat the opponent. We just got to execute our game plan.
Yeah, it's a great comment, and it's also as factual as you can get, because obviously it's all about making sure you know your opponent and you have to adjust to it or whatever the situation is. Yeah, you got to study them and know some of their tendencies. But I think at the end of the day, what we've all learned throughout the whole process is if you take care of your responsibility, if you do what you're supposed to do within that particular play or that situation, then everything works out better for that particular unit. And that way, you're not so concerned about what the other team is doing, because if you take care of you've already practiced hard enough or practiced in a position that gives you a chance to go win that battle, whoever you're going against. So I think it's a big time statement. It's something that we used all the time, but you always hear, can you get 1% better? Same thing you just mentioned about, today has to be better than yesterday. Every time you go out, you want to be taking a step forward as opposed to taking steps backwards. And I think that's a big deal, especially in training camp, is not to commit the same mistakes, not to do the same things over and over again, and finding ways to get better so that throughout this process, throughout training camp, once you get to day 8 or 9, you're starting to go this way as you're getting ready for a game, as opposed to taking steps back and then you're worrying about what's going on in front of you.
You know, guys, as we record this show on a Tuesday, the Falcons put the pads on today. But before we talk about that, I want to go back because I have been out of town a little bit. You guys were around this past weekend. Falcons completed their first weekend of practices. And Arch, I'm going to come back to you. Like, what stood out to you the first couple of practices that you got to see of this 2025 team?
Yeah, I thought that the Saturday practice was, you know, the first practice on Thursday was kind of that, okay, we're back out on the field and we're trying to get our timing down, where you're supposed to be on this drill, you know, changing direction, all this kind of stuff. I thought Saturday, to me, was the first practice that kind of felt like training camp practice. I don't know if you felt that way, Chark, but it kind of felt like, okay, now it's a training camp type practice. Defense won the day.
Yeah.
Offense had a really tough day. Ball was on the ground. Bijan Robinson even talked about, you know, that's not the way we can't play that way offensively. He even did an interview on NFL Network talking about it. So it already, one practice in, was already resonating with, that's not who we are. We got to be better than that. The defense, like I said, won the day. Now, it didn't help that Ulbrich introduced, it looked like a couple of blitzes when you don't have any pads on or anything like that, just to kind of screw you up in the blocking schemes a little bit, I think. But, you know, they're trying to get better on their side too. And that's what I talked about. One of the things I talked about training camp, and we talked about this, Shock, last week, is what are we looking for from training camp? Defense wins the day, offense wins the day. But you're combining that competition where they're grinding on each other, where you get that best possible team as you emerge from August. All of a sudden, that team that's been grinding on each other all training camp, now all of a sudden you got that best version on both sides of the football that emerge.
This is a completely different era, fellas. I mean, and probably an era that favors the fans because of social media and because of the developments of media in general. Again, I go back to my playing days, our playing days, when we got finished with a practice, there were writers that were there and they were writing articles that got published in the newspaper. The newspaper. Do y'all remember what those things are and what they look like?
No.
Because I remember sitting at breakfast at training camp and I would read a newspaper hearing about how they captured the moments from yesterday's practice. There's no more yesterday anymore. It all ends up going out on social media right now. And so, to your point, Arch, we're getting this live update of defense won the day. But guess what happens in training camp when it's one team? Either the defense is going to win or the offense is going to win. Generally, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's going to be a stalemate. But what did you take away from the first weekend?
One thing that came to mind here, and both of you guys talk about what's happening right now, and we talk about the fans and the media having these live updates. How about the players having it as well? And one thing that came to mind to me was, you think about the last couple of days, this is something they've been doing, but having the video boards out on the field. And I saw today Michael Penix climb in the pocket, and he was kind of mad. He threw it down because they didn't complete the ball or whatever it was. And he's walking around. He instantly looks at the board. So you're talking about getting instant analysis of what happened right now.
Good call.
Another example I got, you heard today, Raheem Morris talking about Bijan, and he said, you know, we had a bad day on Saturday, and Bijan goes to him and says, Coach, you know what, I would really love to get with the players after practice and talk to them. Raheem says, no, do it right now. Who you need to talk to, go find that guy. Go find whoever you need to. Let's handle it right now on the field. There's the instant, you know, things that you want to have happen right now. And I think that's one of the things you talk about with Raheem, talking about how he is going to change the way he's coaching. He's changing the mindset of how they go about correcting things and getting it done right now, as opposed to how we used to do it was, hey, we got to go watch the tape. First thing you got to say, I got to go see what happened on the field first before I know what happens. Now they got instant gratification to see what happens. Raheem said the same thing. No, let's not let this fester at all right now. If there's something you want to go say to a guy, go handle it right now. So you love that part about training camp and the things that they're getting out of it right now that's different from when we played, that they can handle right now. But I think the one thing that comes to mind to me is the attention to detail that you can see in every drill. Now, I'm not saying other teams don't do this, but just from my eyes watching everything that go on, from the things that go on in the DB drills, going on with the offensive line, you see guys, you see coaches talking about first steps and actually going through it, and you see guys actually taking the first step and then they're talking through it. You're talking about QBs going through progressions as far as, okay, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and you see DJ Williams talking to Michael Penix Jr. You see the small, minute details that's going to lead to the bigger things once you get into those 11-on-11 drills. You get into 7-on-7. You get into a game so that you've already talked and communicated through, and I've seen that on both sides of the ball, that attention to detail when it comes to the small, minute details of whatever the position is and trying to make sure they're doing it the right way.
Chark, it's great that you walk our viewers and listeners through that, because there are people that are not part of the 15,000 that get to come watch practice. And when you make a comment like that, they may not know exactly what you're talking about. They may be trying to envision in their head, well, what are those adjustments? What are those attention to the details that he's actually talking about? So I think it's good that you kind of walk folks through that. There were some interesting storylines that came up over the weekend. One of the biggest was, of course, Darnell Mooney and the shoulder injury, saying that he's going to miss a few weeks. Yeah. And I don't want to use the word subsequent, because the discussion was DJ Chark was already scheduled to be worked out. Yeah. So it's not necessarily in reaction to Darnell Mooney, but he was signed. And so you guys actually talked a little bit about wide receivers before we came on the podcast today. So, Arch, I want to have you kind of touch on a little bit of the Mooney-Chark situation, but maybe the wide receivers as a whole, what you've seen so far, and where do you need to see some growth during this training camp?
Well, certainly growth is a good call, Rack, in that I think this is a group that you don't know a lot about other than Drake London, Ray McLeod, Darnell Mooney. Kaderl Hodge. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of an obscure group. We saw Chris Blair play last year, but it's a group. Casey Washington, a guy they drafted, got banged up a year ago, was on some special teams but didn't play. This is an opportunity for him to step up. So there's opportunities here from guys that maybe you knew a little bit about in college that are now giving you the opportunity. Now the Mooney, I don't want to call it an injury, brush up, whatever you want to call it, because I think it gives an opportunity for other guys to step up, like I talked about. The one thing that's interesting, Rack, to me is, okay, a lot of GMs, a lot of coaches will build their rosters so a guy can step in. There's a guy that's a lot like that. He'll step in. Mooney's a different dude. Yeah. There's long speed there. He's got some short area quickness. He's a really good route runner. So you start trying to find, he's a smaller guy, and all of a sudden Ray McLeod is the guy that has emerged that's going to play that position, and now Kaderl Hodge steps up to where Ray would play. And so you start finding out about your depth a little bit. I think it's an area, in my opinion, that they're not sure about yet. Yeah. I think DJ Chark comes in here with an opportunity to make the club. He's not just in here as a camp body. This is a long speed guy, had a monster year, his second year in the league, over 1,000 yards, was a Pro Bowler. Yeah. And in the last 3 or 4 years has had injuries and has dealt with stuff and has kind of bounced around the league a little bit. This might be an opportunity for him to find a home here.
Well, and Arch, listening to the live show, Terry Fontenot talking about how Easton Stick worked out with him in the offseason and said that he looked great. And that, remember, this is you talk about the difference between him and Darnell Mooney. This is 6'3", 200, and a guy that ran 4.34 in the combine coming out of school. So you don't know whether or not all that long speed is still there, but you're trusting, number one, Easton Stick and what he saw in the offseason. Number two, trusting the Falcons, what they saw in the workout. But ultimately, number three, Chark, is what does he do in training camp? Can he rekindle a little bit of what he did in that second year in the league when he was over 1,000 yards? Yeah. And can he be an impact player that you know is experienced, that has a lot of starts under his belt? Maybe, just maybe, he's got an opportunity to make the club.
And you can only hope that. And I think they feel good about the body of work that he's bringing in. And obviously, like you guys mentioned, there was a time where this guy was a really good receiver in this league and played really well. And here's a guy that, working out with Easton Stick in the offseason, Easton is telling him, hey, this is kind of the stuff we do. So he can go back and kind of say, you know what, I remember running these type of routes, because I remember him talking on the interview saying, you know what, I was just doing stuff that Easton said, these are the routes that we run. So you're talking about coming in and have a familiarity with some of the things they're already doing. It helps you. And like Arch said, you ain't coming in here just to be a body. Yeah. You come in here to kind of fill a void. You come in here to be a guy that we can actually depend on. So only time will tell. Obviously, these preseason games will be big for him, but these training camp practices are big as well. They're going to have a chance to go against the Tennessee Titans when they come here. That's another chance to compete. So it's going to be fun to see how he progresses through training camp and if he can actually add some value, because I'm sure he's that kind of body that they would love to have on the perimeter.
I think it's interesting too, guys that sense the opportunity, and sometimes you have to be around a little while to sense that opportunity, right, Rack? I mean, a guy like Casey Washington, I had a chance to talk with him post-practice today, and he talked. You could see it. He was a different guy. He could see that there was a not a tenseness, but a focus, if you will, that he understood. There's an opportunity here for me to now take that next step, not just be an extra guy, a sixth receiver on the team. There's an opportunity for me to be on the field, not just on special teams, but on the field. And you wonder. And young guys have a tough time. They just want to make the club. They want to. Nick Nash is a kid that I think has a lot of potential. I think Quincy Skinner's a guy that has some potential. It's young receivers, but it's a developmental type thing. Yeah. Where you start looking at Casey Washington, he knows what the flavor is. He needs to go, get his. Yep. And you can sense that. So Chris Blair is the same way. I think that they sense that there's some opportunities, which I think guys rise to the occasion, those opportunities.
One thing, fellas, when you work with people, sometimes you don't like them and you step back afterwards and you want to fight them. And I've never thought that way about you guys. So that's a good thing. I guess maybe that's the reason why us three are together. So I don't ever really want to fight with you guys. However, this past weekend, there was some tussles on the field, which all three of us know is just part of training camp. It's nothing to be alarmed about. Maybe some of the fans that go sit on the hill, when they see that break out, they're probably like, oh my gosh, are they going to be okay? Is this team going to fall up? Look. It is normal, okay? Yeah. It is very normal. Now, there's obviously the balance of tenacity versus they're your teammates, right? But we would all agree that this stuff happens. Did it escalate too much this past weekend, or in your guys' opinion, was it just normal? Chark, let's start with you.
I've been a part of a few teams where we've had some tussles, and what I saw from that was mild.
Okay.
Of course, it was, some grabbing of the face mask and pushing and all that kind of stuff. But I've seen some fights throughout the time I was here as Atlanta Falcon, as well as when I was in college, that things got a little out of hand. You those dudes can't be friends no more. So
they ain't going to have coffee together.
Yeah, I think you, as people know, it's hot outside. Just think about how many times if you're hot and you're walking around outside and you just got dudes just keep pushing you, keep agitating you, punch you across the head a little bit, give you a little jab in the rib cage, you're going to be a little hot too. And sometimes you may snap back. And it's okay, because I think it shows, like you mentioned, some intensity, but it shows a little passion. It shows you care. It shows that guys, you're not going to allow a guy just to push you around. And one guy who's a part of it was James Pierce Jr., a rookie. Yeah. And you don't want to see, and sometimes I knew some offensive linemen during my time that would try a guy just to see if this guy had a little bit of dog in him, or to see if this dude got a little bit of edge in him, if he gonna fight back. Yeah, and that tells you a lot about your teammate. Yeah, if I push this guy around and he just walks away and don't say nothing, you're like, I don't know. What I'm saying?
Can I count on him?
You know what I'm saying?
Can I count on him on the fourth down when I need him?
If it get tough, well, this dude, well, he square up for me. And for me, I don't mind it. I know you don't want too much of it, because Coach Moore said, it takes away from the time you go to practice. We want to get back to it. We want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to. But at the end of the day, you got guys coming to his defense. You had my boy Flo coming to his, Leonard Floyd coming to his defense. You got guys coming to, defense of the offensive lineman. So I think it's healthy to have those kind of skirmishes throughout practice, because it means, guess what? Guys are going hard. They're competing, and that's what you want.
I thought Jeff Ulbrich said, he was asked about it, James Pierce Jr. in particular. Obviously, he was kind of at the center of a couple of these skirmishes, if you will. And obviously, you got to say, what do they call it? Say it. Jared Call put down on our call sheet, he called it kerfuffles.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it like a Utah? It's like a Utah. He's from Utah.
That word ain't in our kerfuffles vocabulary.
That'll be the last time we use it on this show. But Ulbrich, Brick talked about what Pierce how he responded. Obviously, there was the reprimands. Hey, you can't do that. That's your teammate, all this kind of stuff. But then you kind of dig it because they're fighting a little bit like Chark was talking about. But what Brick said afterward was he said, I loved the guy Pierce was after.
Yeah.
Because practice was about halfway over when it went down, or a little more than halfway over. He was better in practice after it went down than he was maybe even prior to. Yeah. So he refocused, reestablished his idea of what he needs to do out there to get better, and then competed with his teammate and didn't detract from his team trying to get better as well. So I thought that was pretty cool that he would talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I know, guys, we had a guy named Ron Heller, who was an offensive tackle, played in Philly. He wanted to fight the guy in the first couple plays of the game. Yeah. And it wasn't for the guy, he challenged the guy.
Yeah.
It was to get his blood flowing.
Yeah.
He wanted to fight the dude, so he was in it because he was a really nice guy off the field, but he had to find that dog, as you guys are talking about. So he had to get in a fight, punch a guy in the wherever and all that kind of stuff. Next thing they're fighting. So there is some method sometimes to the madness on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again,
you remember a Harvey Dahl or Tyson Clabo dude?
How about Keith Brookie?
Well, that's obviously, so
Brooke got kicked out of practice.
You see here who I wrote down? Keith Brooking, Brady Smith, and Keenan Forney
Mike Johnson. See ya.
They were kind of the usual suspects when I was playing. But no, my last comment on that is it's hard if you never played this game or played anything really competitive to understand what we're talking about. But like sometimes when somebody steps to you, if you know what I mean, or they get in your face and they challenge you, it's kind of like that. Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
And that's to your point about Pierce. After that moment, he was probably like, oh, it's on. Like, they turned my buttons on, it's on, and I'm going to show them who James Pierce is. But the biggest key is, can you combine that newfound energy and competitiveness you have with the mental focus to execute what you're supposed to do and not let the emotions take over. So anyway, fights at NFL training camps, college, high school.
All over the place.
Happens all the time. Yep. Completely normal.
Come on, man.
Not right now.
Oh, it's on.
Fellas, we got one more. We got one more. All right, I'm going to combine this last topic here, fellas, because as we talked about today's practice, they put on the pads a little bit. You guys got a chance to see that. Between the pads and at this stage in camp, Chark, what are the coaches, the front office, or even the players? What is the focus now where they are at in camp?
I think a lot of things you could talk about when the pads come on. But I think first and foremost, it comes to the physicality. Who will be physical, especially in the trenches? Who is willing to put the hat in there and show up in those situations where you say, oh, we had pads on, I would have gave you a nice little thud. I think that's a big part of it. I think the other part is this is the closest you will get to game feel, game action as far as how guys attack certain guys. And what I mean by that is how guys do in pass pro. Say you got a running back and you got a linebacker coming in with no pads on, it's hard to tell, they're just going to fluff and they'll go around. But now this linebacker can come in and he can put his hat right on you, and will you stand up and be right there for it? Mm-hmm. Or in the run game, we saw it today in 11-on-11. Who's going to be able to use their physicality to move that guy in front of them to create a hole or to stymie a guy to stand there? And is that linebacker going to fill that gap? And what they do now is what you call a thud. You get in there, you put your hat, you put your shoulder pads on him, and you just let him know, hey, I'm here. And that's a big part of it. So I think the physicality is a big part of it. And making it as realistic as you can when it comes to fits, when it comes to the aggression of getting downhill. And I think that's a big part of it. Which guys are actually going to actually show that, hey, if we're playing a game, I put my hat on this guy, it's going to be real.
Yeah.
Yeah, combine the physicality with what you're talking about, the mental piece of it, Rack. And Divine Diablo today was a monster on defense. I mean, he was coming downhill, going through blocks of guards and centers trying to get him, blowing the run game up. I also saw Ryan Newsel, who's now your new starting center, played 8 games a year ago as a starter, and he and Matthew Bergeron working on a stunt where a linebacker was coming second level. Nose tackle went outside to try to take the guard out, and the linebacker loop to the inside. Yeah. They pass that off perfectly. Penix sat in the pocket and found Bijan Robinson, who was coming out of the backfield on a little corn route out of the backfield for a touchdown. I mean, just those kind of – so we've gone through the mental stuff. We've done it on the board. We've walked through it. But now there's the physical piece that you actually have to get it done, like you're talking about, Chark. Yeah. Okay, I can put my hand out there. Yeah, I would have had you, if I – now you have to get him, and you got to put the hands on him. You got to get the pads on him. Are you square on people? So the technique, along with the mental piece of that and the physicality, all comes together.
And Arch, on that play in particular, you're talking about the Bijan. Another good thing you learn from what having pads on is, can you block a guy when he's coming around the edge? That same play, Pierce comes around the edge on Jake Matthews, and they call a hold on Jake Matthews right there, saying that he got under him or whatever, he got a tug, and you bring that back. If you don't have pads on, he probably just pushes and runs him by, but because you have those pads on, now Pierce can actually fight through Jake, and now he has a hole. So a lot of interesting things you can get from having the pads on that helps you have a realistic picture of what's going on in the game.
And I don't want to take anything away from the skill or the speed position players, but when to me, guys, when the pads come on, it's about the trenches, it's about run game, and it's about line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And you guys kind of hit on most of the big points, but it's working those combination blocks in the run game. It's passing off stunts in the passing game. But the flip side of it, too, is also the defensive front. Which of your defensive tackles are going to be able to hold their ground? Which guys can you count on that are going to be able to fight off double teams, that are going to be able to stay in the A gap when that's their responsibility and they're not getting moved out of there? And you can look at it and you can say, that guy's got to be on the field when we're in rundown situations, right? So many things there. What you guys were talking about, blitz pickup with running backs. Like, are they going to be able to sit down in the chair and pick somebody up coming through the tackle box or coming around the edge, right? All those things are so important to see once the pads come on. Yeah, there's some benefits to the wide receivers. Like, are they still running fast out there? Yeah, that's great. I mean, they thud and so on and so forth. Safety's coming in the box. But to me, by and large, it's what's happening with the offense, defensive line, linebackers, and running backs, and how all those guys are faring now that the pads are coming on.
Yeah.
I wrote down 4 things as far as this phase of camp, and I want to see if you guys agree with this, okay? Understanding of plays and responsibilities, right? Knowing where you're supposed to go. And then lack of missed assignments, right? That's what coaches want to see is, can you take what you learn in meeting rooms, in the classroom, bring it out to the field, and then not make mistakes? That's the biggest way to get on the field, is if the coaches have faith that you are not going to make mistakes when you are out there. Yeah. Ability to play fast was my third one. And then you guys talked about it. Execute. Can you actually do what you're supposed to do? Can you complete passes? Can you catch the ball? Are you there to square up to make tackles? Can you execute combination blocks? Can you get off of combination blocks? Can you get around the edge as a pass rusher? These are all things that actually have to happen on game day for you to be successful. To me, this is where camp gets to, is, are these players able to do those 4 things, and probably many others, but those are the 4 that I highlighted as the most important.
And I had something very similar written down, and it was to the point of who can mentally and physically sustain it through the new installs, because you got a lot of stuff going on. Can you play faster after every day is a different install? You're putting in something different, adding to what you have already. Okay, who can mentally and physically do it? And then you're talking about, you also got to fight with the heat. I mean, it's a real deal. It's hot outside. And you're running around, you got these pads on. First time you're really going. It's different from when you're working out in the off season and you're outside and you got the pads on and you're trying to simulate it. But now you got real deal competition. You got installs, you got the heat, you got, trying to make sure you're in the right spot. Can you mentally and physically do it and sustain it over a period of time so that you're not making the same mistakes? You're not doing the routine errors because you're a little hot or you're a little tired. Now you got these pads on and it's a little bit hotter and it's 100 degrees outside. Who can do that? I think they really want to pay attention to those guys who can sustain it over a period of time. Now, this was the first day. Everybody probably felt good about it. You're still, a week in the camp. But who's going to do that when we get to next week when you're in practice number 9 or 10?
I think the other piece to it, guys, is the coaching piece to it, too, is, we're trying to discover who, are going to be the 53 guys and then maybe those 16 guys on practice squad, and you start formulating thoughts. But you're trying to find the guys that are going to line up and play for you and go win games. So how do I adjust the flavor of different guys playing together. So that's the coaching piece to it. Yes, they're teaching, but they're also, you talked about the players stepping up and doing all the kind of. I'm trying to step up as a coach. I need to put the right guys in position. Today, Xavier Watts was on the field with Jesse Bates in the back end.
For sure.
That hadn't happened. So now they got the rookie out there with the venerable one in Bates. And how did those two communicate with one another? Guys rotating in, Billy Bowman rotating at that nickel spot. How do the edge guys combine with one another? Some of the stunts that we can now do physically, like you guys are talking about, how do they execute those? Is Onyemata and Floyd on the same page? When they start doing that, what do I need to do to tweak that? So it's not just a player perspective. It's the coaches are trying to adjust their thought process. Is who do I need on the field in this down and distance situation? What two guys are communicating the way they need to, and who do I need to bolster? Who do I need to pick it up a little bit? Hey, you need to do more of this,
right.
Those kind of things. So it's not just the players, it's the coaches that are trying to adjust as well.
Fellas, we are just scratching the surface here. Just scratching the surface.
Hey, now.
But guess what? Training camp is officially underway.
It's on.
It is on. That's going to wrap it up for this week on the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. We'll be back here as we record for the most part on Tuesdays, and you guys will consume it whenever you guys take in your podcast material. But we got a lot to talk about next week as the Falcons are getting ready for some scrimmaging and, of course, some joint practices coming up on the docket as well. So we'll be able to break some of that stuff down, but we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about as far as the actual practices that we have seen. Maybe we'll get into some new names that we haven't discussed yet, but I know a lot of you out there are so excited to not only see some of these free agents and how they're fitting into this team, but also this rookie draft class that we're expecting so much from. Obviously, the pass rushers, but in the back end as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to detail it for you all and much more next week. As I said, that's going to wrap it up for today's Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. That's DJ Shockley. That is the Dave Archer.
Respect on that name.
Respect on that name. Don't forget it.
That is Derek Rackley.
and
we're going to have a kerfuffle now once we get out of here.
I'm happy to be back with my fellas. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We will see you next time.